All right, guys, let's do this. It looks funny. It looks interesting. We always love Think Before You Sleep. He's our favorite guy in the world. It's called The Consequences of Woke Parenting. I'm excited. Let's get this party started.
My name is Asa. I am 6 years old.
I didn't expect it to go in this direction.
And I do drag.
Asa is a baby drag queen.
He started doing this 4 or 5, now
How are you a baby? How are you even a baby?
6 years old. He is by far the youngest performer we've seen.
There's even adult
Whatever.
performers that
I don't understand why you would. Whatever. I don't care.
sometimes you can outperform.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is the next RuPaul.
Did anyone think to ask if this was age appropriate? Anyone?
I mean, listen, drag is not inherently like sexual. So I mean, as long as it's not a sexualized version of drag, I guess it doesn't really matter. I just think it's, I don't know, it's just weird. that's where I'm at. I just think it's weird. Whatever. The way I like to look at it is like, you know what? If it's bad for the kid, that just means my kid will by comparison be doing better off. You know what I mean? So there's my response.
Are we just letting kids do whatever they want with no parenting at all? Or are these kids actually being
Kevin
used as a means to an end?
chatted $75.
Whatever.
Actual first time catching the stream. It's nice to watch your VODs when I write.
Oh, thank you.
Love you, Papa.
I love you too. Thank you so much for the $75. That was very generous of you. What I will say is here's one question I have. Would you also say it's weird if it was your girl doing this behavior? And if your answer is no, then that's just homophobic. But if your answer is like, yeah, I think it's inappropriate for my son or daughter to do this, I'd be like, okay, cool, that's it. Personally, I think it's kind of strange. I really wouldn't want my kid engaging in any type of beauty pageant type or drag scene. I don't know. It feels like maybe that's something that they can make a decision on doing when they get older. I'm not like horribly morally outraged by it. I think it's probably bizarre, but like it's, I don't know, whatever, you know.
To fulfill some kind of weird fantasy of the adults around them. But maybe there's something I'm not seeing.
What do you think the biggest misconception of Asa and what he's doing is?
I think there's a few people who don't like
He probably enjoys doing it. Like, I don't know. I just feel like that's not the greatest atmosphere to be exposed to.
what we believe can sometimes
It's like this, like a beauty pageant, you know?
be violent.
I love the way that Vice edited this. The interviewer asks, what do you think the biggest misconception is? Followed by,
Yeah.
well, there's a few misconceptions. People
Yeah.
don't like us. Good job, Vice. Excellent way to start the video with a non-answer.
Good job, Vice.
Eventually, they do answer the question over 10 minutes later at the end of the documentary, after
Okay.
their critics have already been demonized as unreasonable. They say, a misconception is that our son is being forced to do this. While that does sound like a reasonable argument because maybe some people are saying that force is a factor, in reality, this is actually a straw man argument because force is not the main concern from critics. The main concern is that kids are being
I've engaged with this multiple times, and force is a pretty big point of contention that they're forcing it. The kid seems to enjoy it, but doesn't. But
manipulated into willingly doing inappropriate stuff like this by adults who are creepy. With that said, this interview is from a
Maybe.
Vice series called Child's Play. It features Aaron and Jen and their 6-year-old son, Asa,
Okay.
who does drag. While Vice appears to portray this family favorably by labeling all critics as hate mobs without showing their
Okay.
arguments, this whole situation begs the question of why? I have no problem with people identifying with or being a part of the LGBT community,
Oh,
but if
that's
you
nice
want to
to
do
hear.
things like drag dancing on stage, why can't you just wait till you're older? What's so
sure, that's a pretty reasonable point. Yeah, I guess I agree.
urgent? Why do kids have to be exposed to and participate in drag? More importantly, how does
I mean, again, if the drag itself isn't sexualized, I guess it's not as big of a deal. Well, it certainly wouldn't be as big of a deal if it's not sexualized, obviously, versus sexualized content. You know, I just think it's weird. I don't know. I don't know.
a 6-year-old even know what this stuff is?
One of Asa's favorite pastimes since he was a toddler was dancing.
Well, that's it. Once your kid starts to dance, that's right to drag.
He would watch a lot of Kids Bop videos, and then we noticed that he's trying to do the dances that they're doing in the music videos.
Wow.
was-
Who would have thought a kid would have tried to do dancing from a video?
Fully unaware that Kids Bop was still a thing. I thought that brand died in the 2000s. Despite that, what you'll see happen throughout this video is that Jen and Aaron are very dishonest in the way they portray what they're doing. Clearly, they are
Why?
used to pushback and have scripted responses to common objections that people have to their behavior.
Okay.
So they start the conversation by saying, this isn't anything strange. He was just dancing along to Kids Bop videos. What's
Okay.
wrong with dancing?
Cool.
Now that his behavior has been portrayed as innocent because obviously there isn't anything inherently wrong with most forms of stage dancing like tap, ballet, or break dancing, but there's a difference between stuff like that and stuff that is not child-friendly like pole dancing or twerking. That being said,
Sure,
how do we
I
go from
guess.
Kids Bop to drag?
I would say the real conversation about drag started the first time that he went to Pride with us.
The first time that we took
Oh,
any of our
okay.
kids to Pride, Asa was 4.
That's probably what happened. They went to Pride, and the kid's like, "I like this," and now they're doing it. You know? Yeah, okay. I guess as long as you're just make sure that the drag's not sexual, then sure, whatever.
You thought it would be a good way to bring
It's
our kids
weird.
in and let them see the diversity of the world around us.
Okay.
The music came on for the main stage. Asa was like, "What's that music? I want to know," and grabbed me by the hand, and there was a drag performance going on.
Okay.
He's just sat there kind of watching in awe, and he turned to me and said, "Could I do that?"
You took your 6-year-old
All right.
son to a Pride parade at 4 years old?
What? Is that who? What?
Why the hell would you take a young child to Pride?
I hold on. I just had a fucking brain aneurysm. Hold on.
I was like, "What's that music? I want to know," and grabbed me by the hand, and there was a drag performance going on. He's just sat there kind of watching in awe, and he turned to me and said, "Could I do that?"
You took your 6-year-old son to a Pride parade at 4 years old?
How do you take a 6-year-old to Pride at 4? I'm so fucking confused. Was a kid 4 or 6? I'm so fucking confused now. I'm upset.
Good way.
With us.
The first time that we took any of our kids to Pride, Asa was 4. You thought
Okay, so they took their kid to Pride at
it
4.
would be a good way to bring our kids in and let them see the diversity of the world around us.
Okay.
In awe.
Why the hell would you take a young child to Pride? Pride
I don't think it's a big deal as long as, like, listen, some aspects of Pride can unfortunately be sexual. Hopefully their kid just wasn't exposed to the sexual part. Okay.
parades are about celebrating sexuality, and a 4-year-old
So just to be clear, I think that there is a problem with some of the stuff going too far when it comes to being sexualized. But celebrating Pride, yeah, again, it's about celebrating sexuality, but it's not about celebrating sex, and that's the problem. People are like, oh, celebrating sexuality, which is sex. It's just about celebrating love. That's just the term we use as sexuality. Like, oh, who are you in love with? If we had a parade celebrating, people enjoying being straight, I don't think you'd have as much of an issue. It's just that there has been an oppression linked to being gay and trans, I suppose. Well, yeah, for a long time, and then that's what the Pride Parade's for. It's not about celebrating sex, though. Just again, there are people there that are weird, that are too sexually driven. I agree, but as long as they've hopefully vetted that out, it's really not an issue to take your kid to it's a parade. It's just a festival, basically, to celebrate, acceptance of the LGBTQ community. It's not that deep.
does not need to be learning about sexuality or diversity in a place where people are displaying kinks.
They could be sometimes.
In fact, a 4-year-old should know nothing about sex. Contrary to what a lot of people still
sure.
seem to believe, kids are not tiny adults. You can't expose them to certain information until they get older because that information is traumatizing to them.
Okay, so it could be. Doesn't mean that it instantly is. And again, we don't know what they saw at the Pride. If they just saw a drag queen on the Pride thing, as long as it wasn't sexual, historically, drag queens just dance and sing as, usually somebody that they enjoy. It's like Aretha Franklin, et cetera, and they dress up as them. Now with music getting more sexualized, you will see some of it getting more sexualized, but the issue, I guess, more is the music than anything else. But yeah, okay.
And they'll develop pathological behaviors in adulthood like addiction if they're exposed to certain stuff too early.
Sure, certain stuff. I don't... Just very vague, sure.
Stop exposing kids to the adult world. It's not good for
Okay.
them. I mean, I can't even show a lot of the stuff that commonly goes on at Pride parades on YouTube without getting
Okay.
penalized, so I can't imagine why it's legal to publicly display things like sexual kinks out on the street where everyone
Okay, so I'm going to assume that they weren't exposing their kids to these dog people.
can see it. I mean, these are some very irresponsible
Ban dog people from Pride, by the way.
parents.
I was still kind of new to the concept of the
Everything we're seeing, it's just like their kid dancing at the
I mean, these are some
festival
very irresponsible parents.
and a waterfall. Yeah, I mean, if this is all they're seeing, if this doesn't look very sexual, it's just a bunch of people crowded around a stage. It doesn't really seem like a big deal.
I was still kind of
Okay.
new to the concept of the LGBTQ
Yeah, that person's not, they're just dressed like a girl. Not a big deal.
community. I've never really been exposed to it, never been around it.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all. There's no
Yeah.
way this guy is straight. Even the people in the comments agree.
What? Maybe. What? Based on what? As a gay guy, it said that the dad never felt comfortable to live his reality. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him to determine if he's a closeted gay guy.
But you're a terrible liar, Aaron, and even if you are being honest, it's still irresponsible to take your kids to Pride.
Why? Who cares?
It would be like, gee, I've never been to a nightclub before, but I thought I would take my kids there so they could experience diversity in people's behavior.
A nightclub is not the same as Pride. What are you talking about? A nightclub is explicitly sexual. Pride is not explicitly sexual, okay?
And learn about intoxication. This whole
Okay.
feigning ignorance thing they're doing is ridiculous.
I'm
This guy's
all
so
about
weird.
our family being allies, but it never occurred to me that we'd be a part of that community at this point in our lives.
It
Cool.
never occurred to you? You literally brought a 4-year-old impressionable child to the event. The only reason he
Okay.
knows about this stuff is because you were very forward about exposing your kids to diversity, and when the 4-year-old kid said, "Can I try drag dancing?" instead of saying, "No, that's for adults," you asked him if he wanted a dress.
Okay. I would just say, okay.
Following that, for the next year, Asa was just obsessed with drag. And so the conversations
Okay.
led to, would Asa ever want to wear a dress?
Did Asa say he wanted a dress, or did you ask him if he wanted a dress?
Who gives a shit? I mean, like, my thing is I really wouldn't want my kid going to Pride and, you know, just not, well, I actually don't give a shit if my kid goes to Pride. I don't want my kid doing drag. All right, it's a little gay. All right, but if my kid likes it, it is what it is, man. We'll just get there when we get there. You know what I mean? I want a masculine kid, but if my kid's gay, my kid's gay. There's nothing I'm gonna be able to do to stop it. So, you know what I mean? I just feel like I understand the sentiment. You know, people get bullied for being gay or doing. I wouldn't want my kid to get bullied. But if it happened, man, like, I'm gonna love and accept my kid. It is what it is. Like, I feel like people get so panicked over this stuff. Like, it's the biggest deal in the world. Like, fucking Pride is out to groom kids. Nah, it's just different. That's pretty much all it is. I don't understand.
Because if you asked him if he wanted a dress, that's you leading him into the behavior,
You're right.
and
He's-
not a
they
natural
groom their kid.
proclivity because he likes kids bop dances. Also, were you
I think I'd rather my kid be into drag than fucking football, though. I mean, honestly, you play football, you get a fucking traumatic brain injury. I'd rather my kid be gay than have a fucking TBI, you know?
continuously exposing him to RuPaul? Are you allowing him to view content on TV that's not
Who cares? It's RuPaul. RuPaul's a fucking goat.
age appropriate? Or was he asking
Sure.
to watch drag shows so much that you just
I
couldn't
was looking at fucking rated R movies at like 12, 13, jerking off to it, so who gives a fuck, you know?
possibly bear it? Because it seems a lot more likely to me that he was led into this stuff in the disguise of exposing him to diversity instead of naturally desiring it. Their whole
okay.
game plan is to make it look like they are good and supportive parents by saying, well, we're just doing what he wants, when in reality, they're actively pushing their kid towards drag.
Bro, it's just so unhinged. Because, like, here's the thing. You might be sitting there saying, yeah, you know what? I don't think that the parents should have brought the kid to drag. I don't think drag's appropriate. If you have that feeling, like, I get it. I understand where you're coming from. I think that's perfectly fine. But that's not what this video is saying. This video is saying the parents wanted to groom the kid into doing drag. So they brought him to the Pride Festival to make them do it. And it's like, what are you doing, dude? You're gooning too hard right now. You're going too crazy. Like, relax. I don't think that the parents were trying to fucking groom their kid into being into Pride. I think that they were just like, oh, this is a harmless fun, and then the kid liked drag, so they whatever. I don't know. Maybe they did buy him a dress, or maybe he was like, if he started like drag, they're probably like, oh, can I get a dress like that? I'd say no, me personally. But they said yes. Whatever. It is what it is. As long as the kid's safe, I don't care.
Or at the very least, they're ignoring the fact that kids want to do things that are bad for them all the time, and it's a parent's job
I don't know that if drag is necessarily bad for a kid. I mean, I don't see what the bad part of drag is. That's the thing is I'm uncomfortable with it. I don't see what's bad about it. When we look at it, like, what is the bad part about drag? That's the problem I'm having with, like, the arguments. It's like, well, what's the issue with it? Other than it makes us uncomfortable. Because it makes me uncomfortable. But, you know, what is, like, the real issue with it, you know?
to say no.
He said to me one day, I am going
Wedgies make me uncomfortable. I still wear underwear.
to go put on my dress and I am going to sing and you are going to video me and put me on Facebook so everybody can
See, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want my kid online. Not like that. I think that's inappropriate. So
give me likes.
And the answer to that request should be no. You're a child, and this is not appropriate for a child. Stop publicly.
I would say that being a content creator is not appropriate for a child. So that's what I would go towards. I don't care about the drag part as much as that.
posting pictures of your kids online. That's how
Yeah.
creeps get access to them.
Okay.
I mean, this
I don't think most people looking at our creeps are probably just think it's fucking strange or something. You know, it's probably a lot of gay people looking at that like, oh, I wish I could have lived that truth when I was younger. Because that's the thing, you know, is that there's probably a lot of people who do drag now probably wish they could have done it when they were younger and like live their authentic self. So even if you think that they're wrong, that's all they want. They're like, oh, like it's so nice to see somebody that's able to live their comfortable truth as a gay person. Like I wish I could have when I was that age, but you know, they grew up in a time where it wasn't okay to be gay and they would get potentially harmed if they expressed their, you know, sexuality. So
is so bad. Some parent thought it was a good idea to film their 5-year-old daughter doing a squat from the back and put it on Instagram.
okay.
I don't think YouTube will let me get away with showing the comments, but needless to say, there were a lot of people in the comment section that should be in jail.
Probably, but I mean, if the kid was just doing weightlifting, I don't put that blame on the parents. I mean, unfortunately, pedophiles are going to jack off to pictures of kids, you know? That sucks. It's like if your kid plays a sport and they go to a school sport, there's probably going to be a pedophile in the stand that's going to go home and jerk off your kid. It's unfortunate, but you know, you can only hide so much. You know, you can only, you know what I mean? Like, what am I going to do? Be afraid if I let my kid play a sport that could have a very positive impact on their mental health because some creep is going to jerk off to it? You know? I want those people to not be alive. Well, no. I didn't say that, but there's only so much you could do. I don't really, okay.
If you post your kid dancing in drag, you're going to attract this kind of audience as well. But as I said, though they won't admit to it.
I mean, that kid was weight training, so I guess if your argument is like, I think it might be inappropriate for kids to be on the internet in general, like, yeah, I tend to agree. But if it feels like you're kind of bouncing between posting your kid could potentially get them harmed on the internet versus like you shouldn't do drag. That one was just like a general, hey, don't put your kids online, you know?
It's clear that Aaron and Jen—
I think there's also a difference between like just taking a picture and putting your kid up there versus, especially with their face censored, which is what seemed to be what that kid had because they were like from the back or whatever. Which makes sense because like, you don't want to necessarily show your kid on the internet versus making an entire fucking YouTube channel about doing drag or whatever the fuck they have.
Jen are pushing their son Asa into drag by rewarding it with praise and attention.
It was a year after their first performance. I took him to go perform. It was an amazing performance.
Wow, that crowd cheered very loudly after he removed his cape. Interesting. What do you call it when a person is praised?
What?
Took him to go perform.
I gotta watch this. He's making it seem like this kid just got fucking raped.
It was an amazing performance.
Wow.
It's just a cape.
That crowd cheered very loudly after he removed his cape.
Well,
Interesting. What do you call it when a person is praised for removing clothing while dancing and then receives money for their performance from the audience?
I don't know. You know what? If they're getting money, that depends on what they're getting money for. They look fully clothed here, so it doesn't seem like they're getting rewarded for stripping. Seems like that was just part of the show, was to like throw your cape off. I don't think it's as big of a deal, but okay. Hey, who am I, right?
Nobody sees a problem with this. After seeing that Asa wanted to upload a drag video to Facebook for likes, and then seeing the massive amount of attention that he gets from crowds, nobody is concerned that he is merely engaging in this because of how much praise he's receiving. The amount of guests.
I mean, like, yeah, I think people in general are going to engage in something that they get praised for. I agree. Okay.
Flooding here is just ridiculous.
If he was a girl doing these exact same things, no one would be saying anything.
That's kind of true.
Are you kidding? It absolutely would not be fine.
So you could say that all you want, but the reality is there's like really zero concern for beauty pageants. A lot of people think that they're kind of yucky, but there are no YouTube videos really being made about it, not to the degree when it comes to this, because most of the drag conversation is gay panic. Like if you're like, hey, I think it's inappropriate for guys and girls, like that's fine, but like usually most people don't disagree. Could be wrong. I don't think that there are any videos from Think Before You Sleep that are criticizing, girls, like little girls doing beauty pageants, which I think set up very negative beauty standards for little girls. But most people, like in general, because I could be wrong about that, but in general, nobody cares as much. Society doesn't really get upset when it's a little girl doing like a similar or the same thing. It really is because it's a gay kid or kind of a gay kid. It's the degree is not even close to the same.
In fact, leftists have rightfully been screaming about child beauty pageants for years, where similar behavior occurs with little girls.
I mean, they also talk about it, but they don't talk about it to the same degree. Nobody talks about it to the same degree.
This actually is a perfect representation of the whole, like, we must protect our children fucking move, you know what I mean?
Cool.
All this wave
Thanks, Hassan.
of right-wing content creators that are like gross, creepy perverts who fucking defend child beauty pageants, who defend fucking child brides, for example, say insanely sus shit like, the most fertile a woman is when she's 16 years old. Like,
I have heard a conservative say that, Matt Walsh.
Those fucking freakazoids are also the same freakazoids who are like, oh yeah, we gotta protect our children from like, trans people existing.
Though I don't like the whataboutism from wokies trying to use child beauty pageants as a way to own conservatives on child drag shows, when the reality is that both of these things should be illegal. They are both bad for children. So anyway, let's get to the part where the parents wave their kid around to achieve their political goals. A part of this Vice piece talks about a bill in Nebraska that would ban minors from being present at drag shows, and Aaron and the family go to protest that bill.
Yeah, it seems like a waste of time. Like that, you're gonna focus more on that than an actual issue. It's okay. I just think it's who cares?
It was just going to be the two of us speaking. He did want to come and he did want to wear his fancy new
A lot of it's because, and especially historically, or in the past couple of years, conservatives don't have anything to really run on except for like trans and gay panic. So they like will constantly. That's all they'll talk about. That's why people are starting to to get a little annoyed by it. To be like, hey, like, what if we focus on actual, economic issues?
Dress that he had just gotten.
Your son wanted to go to the meeting? Yeah, right. I can just imagine him saying, you know what, Dad? I would love to sit through a 4-hour council meeting. Forget how inappropriate it is to use your child to push your politics, because there is no way
Why is someone in?
a 6-year-old is volunteering to go to a government meeting.
If the video is just like, hey, yeah, it's a little inappropriate, it's fine, but he's just going fucking crazy, man. Everything's a conspiracy theory with this guy. It's fucking. It must be stressful to be him.
Jen got her turn to speak. I got my turn to speak. Asa turned to me and whispered in my ear, "Can I sit in the chair and speak too?" And I said, "Yes, you can." And he said, "Yeah, I do want to speak, but can you sit next to me?" And I said, "That's not a problem. I'm sure they will allow that." I knew that I had to give him some questions.
I knew he wouldn't produce a testimony good enough to impress people, so I had to prompt him with questions to make him sound better. Is it really Asa speaking, or is it just you trying to get a child to say what you want him to say? I'll note that Asa didn't speak until 3 hours into the meeting, and he was prompted by his dad the entire time he spoke.
Probably bored as fuck.
Also, I don't know if this is how the parents framed it or it's how Vice edited the video, but from their statements and from what was shown, you would conclude that mom spoke, then dad spoke, then Asa asked to speak because he was inspired by his parents.
Okay.
What actually happened is that Asa spoke first, then his mom right after, and then his dad like 30 minutes later. This framing from the documentary suggests that they were kind of trying to make a spectacle of Asa's speech, and Vice tried to hide that by making people think his parents spoke before he did. They're taking advantage of people's ignorance.
How do you know that?
Here. As for the actual meeting, I did happen to sit through the whole thing, and while there were many people who opposed the anti-drag bill who said completely ridiculous crap, the most reasonable concern was that the bill was just too broadly worded and could make any instance of performance in front of minors with clothing that does not represent your biological sex as illegal, like, say, a school play where a girl dresses as Peter Pan.
Okay.
I did read the bill, and I do agree that it's too vague and should be reworded to go after what is actually the problem, which are the very many cases of sexualized performances that have been filmed occurring in front of children.
Sure. Yeah, I don't. That's reasonable. Get rid of the sexualized performances. Yeah, I agree. In front of kids, I agree with that. Sure. You have to just figure out what is sexualized, because I imagine a lot of people would say just because they have girls' clothes on that makes it inherently sexualized, which it doesn't. So just make sure it's not that.
I have serious doubts that parents like Aaron and Jen don't know about these performances, considering that they cited libs of TikTok during the Vice documentary.
Well, libs of TikTok is obnoxious, just to be clear. I used to like them, but most of it's just like cherry picking. So.
And Libs of TikTok has shown a lot of evidence of inappropriate drag happening in front of kids.
Libs of TikTok likes to platform inappropriate aspects as if it's all of like everything. That's the problem. It's like a disproportionate issue. Some of it can be funny, but it went from like funny years ago to just being obnoxious. So.
There is indecent drag, but it doesn't happen in front of children.
It's not like, surprise, there's kids in the front row now.
I actually watched a lot of the opposers of the bill deny these performances existing, even though they are on camera and well known.
Yeah, I know that one that he just referenced is inappropriate. Just so that you have the context, it's inappropriate regardless. But the context is it's a show for the parents, the mothers, to be able to bring their kids so that they can actually attend the show without having to get babysitting. Still inappropriate, but the intention isn't to be like exploiting kids or something in some weird capacity. It's simply just to exist to let the parents to make it so that they don't have to get a babysitter or whatever. That's really the whole thing. Inappropriate, but like, the kids obviously aren't going to understand what is even happening, so it's not going to have a negative impact on them, but I still think it's generally inappropriate, so.
A lot of the opposers of the bill deny these performances existing, even though they are on camera and well known.
There's nothing inherently sexual about drag.
There's nothing sexual about it. Sometimes we push the limits, but those are not shows where minors are present. Children are generally not present at drag shows hosted in bars.
There's nothing inherently sexual about dress. There's nothing inherently
everything that they're saying is true.
Sexual about clothes.
I really don't see why we can't all agree that performances like these are wrong, no matter.
They're not disagreeing. They're just saying, generally speaking, drag isn't inherently sexual, and they don't do performances at whatever they're talking about in front of kids that's sexual. That's all they're saying. There are ones that seem to push, like, go across the line and have a kid present, but that's the minority of drag shows.
No matter what ideological team you're on, now that the nuance of this has been explained, I still find it appalling that Asa's parents had him testify at this hearing.
Who cares?
Personally, I would take any testimony from a child with a grain of salt. Because
they probably did.
Because we don't know what's going on in the home that led to this behavior.
You're right, they're fucking raping their kid. What do you mean by that?
Even victims of extreme abuse, such as this one from the We're All Insane podcast, will avidly defend their abusers while they're being abused,
What?
and even promote their
You're trying to see, I was right. He's trying to say the parents are abusing the kid. Jesus, bro, relax.
abuser's ideology,
Oh
only
my
to
God.
realize how awful the situation was years later. I'm not saying this is happening to Asa, but
You're suggesting it heavily. So what are you talking about?
it's very easy to coach, manipulate, or
Okay.
coerce a kid into saying what you want them to say.
True, you're
and that's
right.
why children should not be involved in politics, especially young children like a 6-year-old. And
They are also dumb, so I agree with that part.
certainly, these parents have no problem with lying or distorting the truth multiple times during the documentary, like this
When?
moment here.
Okay.
I knew that I had to give him some questions. I said, how does drag make you feel? He went to that mic and he said, how does it make you feel?
Powerful. Powerful.
When he said powerful to me, that was like, whew, the weight of that word just hit me so hard because I still wasn't
Kind of cringe, but okay.
sure where I was at with performing drag at that point.
Yeah, that's actually a lie. You knew exactly where you were with Asa performing drag because you pretty insistently claimed that you would make sure that Asa does drag, whether this bill passes or not.
If this bill were to pass, we will not stop allowing him to dance in a dress in our home.
This doesn't communicate that they're lying. I'm so confused. What is the lie?
He has performed already in other states. He will continue to perform in other states. He will continue to perform in Lincoln and Omaha as long as he is allowed to legally. We want him to be the most affirmed child that he can be.
Someone might point out that he spoke
What?
after Asa, and those words could have been inspired by what Asa said. To that, I'll say,
Who cares? I listen again. I think it's weird, but all they're saying is like, "Oh, hey, my, I'm gonna have our kid do drag, regardless of if it's illegal here. We're just because it would be illegal for them to like attend to the drag, so he can still do it at home." Okay.
remember that they or Vice tried to hide the fact that Asa spoke first. Second, you can see he's reading
maybe?
off a printed out script. Actually, both him and his wife read off a script, so he
Oh.
already planned to say that stuff.
Okay, what's wrong with that?
Here's them distorting.
You're going in front of a council meeting. Wouldn't it make sense to write what you want to say? That's like if somebody criticized you for writing a script for this video. I don't understand what does that matter?
the truth again.
It really is no different than anything that happens at a dance recital.
Yes, because at a
Okay.
dance recital, kids commonly have dollar bills given to them by the audience.
I bet they wish they did.
Personally, I can think of only one other place where that kind of activity occurs.
Oh
and if
shit!
you think that's
When you go to a restaurant and tip, like you're trying to insinuate that the kid is linking the dancing to the sexualized nature of dancing at a nightclub, right? So what he's trying to do, the kid is going there and dancing, and they're getting money. So they're like, "Oh, I'm getting tipped for my performance." And like, yeah, in sexual shows, they get tipped too when they take clothes off. This kid's fully clothed, so that's obviously not happening. But you also get tipped for good service as a waitress or a waiter. So the kid's just learning that if I dance well, I'll get a tip. They're not learning that if they get naked and do gross shit, like, you know what I mean? At a bar mitzvah. Oh, hey, he's becoming a man. Hey, there you go. Again, be uncomfortable with it. Like, you know, find it inappropriate, but like these dishonest narratives are so weird. It's like it's almost obsessive.
it's the only time this kid has been given money for drag, you'd be wrong. Here's another
Okay.
example. There's one here too, and here's one more.
So far, all the outfits are not sexual, so I don't care.
Being that money is involved, how do we know that this kid isn't being heavily driven to do these performances because he's getting a bonus in his allowance?
Based capitalism, I guess. Who cares if they're doing shows all across? They're probably getting money to do shows. I'm not understanding. Like, listen, they got a job at 4 years old. I guess that's the positive. No, I've been working since I've been 4 years old. Okay.
Even so, we all know it's being mimicked here, and what part of this is child-friendly?
We get told a lot from performers and people in the community that people
A tumble.
do kind of see Lulu as hope of what's to come for the future in the community.
Okay.
Well, considering the material,
You showed us a tumble. What was that supposed to be sexual to us? The kid did a fucking tumble. And the reason that they find it hopeful, again, finding it uncomfortable, they find it hopeful probably because all these gay people were like, I wish I was allowed to do this when I was a kid. Like, for the ones that do drag, they're probably like, oh, I wish I could do this as a kid, but I was like, they would beat me up when I did it. So now they're like, oh, look, this kid's not getting beat up. Like, that's nice for gay people that might want to do gay shit. Okay, cool. Good for the gay people. Like, whatever, man. If it's okay.
well, the people who have that take probably need to spend some time behind bars. But it's not like this is all a new thing. Boundaries around children have been pretty poorly protected throughout the ages.
Yeah, especially in churches. You're right.
You think stuff like creeps at Nickelodeon using LGBT as a disguise to expose children to
I would have went with Dan Schneider feet things more than this. It was just weird. It wasn't okay.
inappropriate stuff is new? No, these companies have been doing that stuff for years. Have you ever investigated why the logo for Nickelodeon used to be a foot, or why there were a number of gags on kids shows that involved kids playing with their feet?
Yeah, Dan Schneider's a fucking weirdo.
Well, one of the higher-ups at that company, Dan Schneider, had a foot fetish, so if you didn't already know that, you're welcome for ruining your childhood.
Sure.
Speaking of iCarly, this actor in
He did write good shows, though. I'm just kidding.
this kissing scene is 23, while Miranda Cosgrove is 16. How about Zoe
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's kind of weird, but it is acting, so I don't care as much.
101? Here, Victoria Justice is 14, and the actor she's doing the kissing scene with is either 20 or 21,
Okay.
depending on when they filmed the episode, because the episode was filmed around his birthday.
So just to be clear, like, yeah, it's kind of weird, but it's acting, so I don't necessarily care. And then also, the people in the show aren't being portrayed as having a massive age gap. So it's like, yeah, they're both 16. So what the point I'm making is that the audience isn't getting the communication that it's appropriate for a 20-year-old to kiss a 14-year-old. The audience is like, oh, these are two kids in the same grade kissing. That's so cool. You're going a little too. Like, your arguments are weird. Find it weird, that's fine, but like, it's not communicating to young people that it's okay for fucking 20-year-olds and 14-year-olds to kiss, because they're probably acting the same grade in the show. But okay.
Who in the hell thought this was appropriate?
Okay.
And remember, they shoot these scenes a ton of times with a crew of adults watching and giving
They're
direction.
probably jerking off. You're right. They're all probably masturbating to it.
This whole thing begs the question of, if there are thousands of people trying out for these roles,
Oh my
then what's the
God.
issue with just finding actors who are the same or close in age? Or just
I don't know. I guess it's hard to act.
don't do the scenes at all. It's no wonder people like Hannah
Okay.
Pearl Davis have these weird boundaries when it comes to minors.
No, Pearl is a fucking creep. That's part of conservative red pill, which is, again, this is something that, like, you have like Matt Walsh talking about fucking 16-year-olds and shit. I mean, this is okay. I don't know. Cool beans. She's just trying to be provocative for attention. That's what it is.
The sad thing is that
I like how Pearl's a victim according to this, and not just a massive fucking dumb grifter.
though this stuff you see involving kids on Lives of TikTok is bad, personally, it's not even the thing I'm most concerned about when it comes to protecting children.
Oh, shit, what
I
is
think a
it?
big part of the reason that's
Probably firearms, right? Kids getting into firearms, shooting themselves, stuff like that. You know, pretty dangerous. You know.
so many people can roll their eyes at this stuff, ignore it, or outright support it, is because the next thing they're thinking is, well, look at what kids have access to on their computer and their phones. This was
Sure.
a comment that was said quite a lot during the recent Twitch event where they allowed artistic
Sorry, what was the?
to on their computer.
Let's be real. This ain't nothing to kids nowadays. I grew up with the internet as a kid and teen. Was able to find stuff back in 2002. Where now it's literally so easy to find stuff, and most teens have phones. I don't think they would be fazed by the content. Yeah, he's probably right about that.
Computer and their phones. This was a comment that was said quite a lot during the recent Twitch event where they allowed artistic nudity, which
For like a day, yeah.
basically turned it into a camgirl site within a few hours, and a place where people were drawing full-on pornography and titling their videos as if they were on the internet's favorite adult hub website.
Yeah, for a day, and then they corrected it very quickly, just to be clear, in a day, and then they made it so that you couldn't even insinuate that like you were nude, like they were doing, the Morgue Pie was doing. So
Let's keep in mind that Twitch is a website where they play games like Fortnite, Among Us, or Fall Guys, which are all games that young
Fortnite.
children play.
True.
Considering that the just chatting section is the most popular category, those kids are just one accidental click away from being exposed to adult content without even having to click on a box that says, "Are you 18?" During the
I think a lot of them actually have their things set to mature, but okay. I mean, like, I'm not really as upset about that because, again, you have porn on the internet. If a kid wants to jerk off to something, they'll probably go look for something more interesting than that. But yeah, parents, pay more attention to your kids. You know, I still don't think it's like a good thing, but I'm just saying I think that some of it is a little panicky and disproportionate. But okay.
the time period when artistic nudity was allowed, there was inappropriate content uncensored right in the thumbnails. These are viewable without clicking any form of age verification or consent,
jeez.
and you don't even have to be logged in.
I'm pretty sure a lot of them do have like age verification. Like, I mean, okay, whatever.
By the way, these inappropriate thumbnails can still currently be found on Twitch in the Just Chatting section,
Based.
as well as the art section, which still has a lot of people drawing
Based, if I was a kid, I'd be gooning all day.
lewd content. Basically, there are always multiple creators drawing hentai in the art section of a website that children use,
Yeah, and they instantly got rid of that because they realized they fucked up.
and those artists aren't always drawing characters that are adults. But it's okay
True
because
that.
most of the time, the girls technically have clothes on. Not that it even matters, because you can simply just click yes to the "Are you 18?" question and proceed to
Okay.
view the content. You don't even have to log in. Yes, I'm aware
Why are you going off about this? This happened for a day, and then they banned a bunch of people for it.
that you're supposed to be 13 to be on Twitch, but considering that they don't require you to sign in for even the most restricted parts of the website, you know that plenty of kids that are far younger than that are on Twitch because children's games are being streamed. The fact
Maybe make sure you watch your kids, parents.
that no one went to prison for artistic nudity on Twitch just baffles me because if
Why would they go to prison? I don't understand.
that was done in a public square, you would have been locked up and put on a registry for a number of years.
The internet's not a public square. I don't understand the argument.
Yet if it happens on the internet, it's totally fine.
Okay.
And people say, what about the parents? It's the parents'
Yeah.
responsibility to keep their kids away from this stuff.
Kinda,
And to that
yeah.
I say, it's so easy to access adult content on every avenue, even with parental controls, that I honestly don't think it's possible for even the most vigilant parents to keep their kids from being exposed to it. Unless
Oh, then you're gonna have to get better, I guess. I don't know.
you like isolate your kids from the rest of society.
Personally, I was exposed to adult content when I was 8 years old at a friend's house.
Yeah, sure. It's kind of just happening.
And
The issue isn't really getting exposed to the content as much as it is that you're able to access. You're able to go down like a rabbit hole, right? Back in the day, you used to find your dad's fucking porn magazine, and you're like, oh, boobs. But now it's like you find boobs on the internet, and you're like, oh shit, pissing. You know, it kind of goes. You got to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole.
and it's something my parents would have never been okay with. I did not have a smartphone. They did everything they could to protect me from that sort of thing.
To put this in terms of a metaphor, access to internet pornography is like this. Imagine if you put like a lemonade stand next to a middle school that was full of free unlimited beer. No one is at the stand to check your age. You can get the free beer at any time of the day, be it 12 p.m. or 4 in the morning. And the only thing you have to do to take the beer is check a box on a clipboard that says yes when it asks you if you're 21.
Based.
And sometimes you don't even have to do that. If this was the case with beer, don't you think a lot of kids, if not pretty much every kid, would have access to alcohol far before the age of consent? And that's not even a
True.
fully accurate metaphor because adult content is much easier to access than that. That being said,
fuck
it's no
it.
wonder that porn addiction is such a common subject of discussion these days. Which brings us to this video
Sure.
here by Gerbert Johnson. I'm not super familiar with this channel, but I believe he's a nofap/black pill YouTuber. Don't quote me on that though.
I would jerk off sometimes, guys. You want to get that load out. You don't have to necessarily use porn, although guys are much more visual. So
We actually aren't going to watch the video. We're just here for
Thanks.
the comments. Looking through these,
Oh, okay.
it's shocking how many people were exposed to adult material at 10 or younger. Actually,
Sure.
I believe it was every comment I read where they gave an age. This one says, I was a 9-year-old girl when I first began watching it. Looking back,
Crazy.
I realized that I had an addiction by the age of 10. Here's another that
you were 10 when you realized it. I very highly doubt that, but okay.
says, I'm 28.
Maybe when you were an adult, you realized it.
And I was exposed to hardcore graphic stuff when I was 10.
Same.
And last, even as a
Same.
woman, I struggle with
Same.
this. I still remember the first video that I watched at around 7 or 8 years old. There were actually a shocking number of women in this comment section. I expected it to be mostly men, but contrary to the popular counter-argument of, you have no idea what 13-year-olds have access to on the internet these days, it's actually not 13-year-olds. It's 7, 8, 9, and 10-year-olds
Sure, yeah. Watch your kids more, man.
getting access to this material. And
And it especially makes sense that you would have people that are around my age, because they're like in their 20s and 30s, late 20s, early 30s, because the internet was very new, and I think parents didn't really realize how available this type of material was. Nowadays, though, it should be easier to monitor. You know, they have like safe searches on your they have like safe searches on your browsers that you could set. You can set computers and different devices to like kids mode. So there's a lot more. You know, if you want to argue, well, yeah, but the Twitch can bypass that kids mode. That's a great point. You know, I would imagine maybe they don't. If they don't have this, they should implement it. But I imagine that there's like kids accounts that parents can have like control over. That's very common. It's probably a lot easier to monitor your kids and what they're looking at than ever before, because people are more technologically savvy, and there's more prevention methods and stuff. Like there's YouTube Kids. They can only access so many things. You know, like thank God those exist. You know,
and none of the mainstream companies are doing anything to stop it. You have
they are, but okay.
Pornhub here that didn't even age verify their actresses until like 3 years ago after massive pushback, and had to remove 80% of their content because a lot of it was illegal. Even still,
Sure.
in the Arden Young Project Veritas style
I don't know if it's all illegal. I think a lot of it was just unverified.
expose, they admitted that you could just bypass that by showing someone else's ID and then not showing your face in your videos. So I'm sure trafficking is still rampant on that website.
The most shocking thing, and honestly, the first thing that I recorded was Mike Farley telling me about this upload loophole where the content reviewers internally at the company find it absolutely impossible, because it is impossible, to match a face on an ID to a body in a video, because many videos
So why wouldn't they just make it so that you had to have a face on the video? Wouldn't that make sense?
don't contain faces at all. So there's a lot of guesswork and, oh, you know, just push it through. It looks about right. Where really you don't know if someone's 14, 16, 20. Many times you
guess
can't
so.
tell. So when Mike Farley started talking about that loophole, I was shocked. And not only that, but the fact that he said it was enough of an issue
I wonder if this is still a loophole.
to him that he sat down and recorded a meeting of him telling the executives about this loophole, and he was told to F off and shut up about it.
If you want to hate that website, then you can just watch.
Yeah, I mean, that's not good. If that's a loophole exists, it sounds like for the most part, Well, for one, saying that to people is just going to give them more ideas if they actually wanted to do it. I imagine most people are uploading with their face. But yeah, hopefully, I guess at least they added something in there. I don't know. That wouldn't be good if you did that. But
watch the people who run it getting surprised interviewed. And yes, they admitted to wanting kids to watch the website. But
what? Who did? What?
It's not just the hub that's the problem.
Who admitted to their kids watching what website? Wait, what? What?
Viewed. And yes, they admitted if you want to hate that website, then you can just watch the people who run it getting surprised interviewed. And yes, they admitted to wanting kids to watch the website.
What website? This says journalist. Do you think like your work might be helping LGBTQ kids find themselves? What? This is so vague. What is this about? This is very vague. What?
But it's not just the hub that's the problem.
I'm so confused. What? I feel like, who is this guy? I'm so confused. What is this guy? Who is this guy? Is he work for Pornhub? This just says production coordinator, Mad Geek. Or Mind Geek. What is Mind Geek? World-class adult entertainment. I would need to know more context about this.
And yes, they admitted to wanting kids to
Do you think like your work might be helping LGBTQ kids find themselves?
watch the website. But it's not just the hub that's the problem.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure. Okay, there's got to be more context. That's so vague.
The world's most popular search engine.
Hold on, what did that last thing say? I mean, if everyone you know shouldn't just be heterosexual people, of course. I feel like the fact that he's not showing more of this it makes me skeptical.
Popular search engine, Google, doesn't even require you to log in before you turn Safe Search off. Of course, there are still ways for a kid to get access to explicit material, even if they're logged in, but the whole idea is to make accessing the content as difficult as possible. This is a principle in marketing. The more difficult it is to buy your product, the less people will consume it. It's also why politicians fight so hard to be put on the ballot, because while yes, you can just write the person's name in, having to do that extra step when it comes to a population of millions makes it so you'll basically never win an election. The more you have to teach a person to make it possible to engage with you, the fewer people you'll get.
So just to be clear, this video is about some kid doing drag, non-sexual drag, and now we're talking about fucking Pornhub. I don't know how we got here.
When it comes to large-scale groups, which in terms of what we're talking about here, it could mean that simply requiring a login before Safe Search can be deactivated could save hundreds of thousands of 7-year-olds from being exposed to adult content. Since the age to view adult content is 18, the goal is to implement a system that makes it so kids are as close to that age as possible before they are first exposed to the material.
Cool.
Obviously, that number will never be 100%, but a person viewing adult content for the first time at 16 is not nearly as bad as seeing it for the first time at 7. With that said, the protections for children against this stuff are dismal, and while plenty of people are outraged about this online, nobody is really willing to take actual steps to make it harder for kids to get access to this content. Except Utah. They signed in a law that requires ID verification to access adult content in their state.
Smart.
Personally, I think that's a step in the right direction. However, the methods of ID verification that they proposed look like they were written by boomers and either require expensive software with dubious accuracy, or they require you to reveal a ton of personal information to some of the biggest degenerates on the planet. Refer back.
Okay. I mean, is that true? I don't know. According to the rule, these are the proposed methods. Validate and verify the cell phone subscriber information. Use dynamic knowledge. Estimate users' age based on the data. Estimate users' facial analysis. Match a user's account to the government-issued ID. Okay, so this is just so funny. This is what's happening here is that the way that they're going to do this is that you're going to upload like your driver's license and like phone number, and then the website, the porn site itself, has to verify a bunch of things. Like they're going to have to use technology to verify different information.
Or they require you to reveal a ton of personal information to some of the biggest degenerates.
It just seems like all you have to do is provide a photo ID, and you might have to use a webcam photo to match it. So, okay.
On the planet.
What else would you do? Isn't that how you would do it? This is just basically just says, I think it might have to give your phone number, a photo ID, and then like actually take a picture of your face on a webcam. Wouldn't that require the most protect? What else would you do? Like,
refer back to the Arden Young interviews for the kinds of people who run adult websites, or note that since the beginning of the internet, adult websites have been riddled with spyware and viruses designed to steal people's info to commit identity theft.
Okay, so it sounds like what you're saying is that it's a step in the right direction. What would you do? Because I don't think that there's anything else that they could do. It sounds like you just want to complain about something.
Jeez. One of these says that you put in your social security number to age verify.
the last 4 digits of social security number against a third-party database of personal information. So it doesn't say put your social in there. It says put your last 4, and then having that linked to like an actual government website, I'm assuming, that would be able to verify that. So just to be clear, you're not really representing that properly, but okay. It seems like a lot. Better off just telling the parents to be better at watching their kids.
Are you kidding me? If you do that, then scammers are just going to...
It makes more sense to try to like have the government help invest into some kind of a website or some kind of a thing you could download onto your kid's phone or onto your computer that filters bad content. Wouldn't that make more sense for the government to do?
Design an ad that looks like the spot that you're supposed to age verify in, and instead of asking for the last 4 digits, they'll trick people into giving out the whole thing.
Okay.
The identity theft business is going to be booming.
It just sounds like you don't have any solution. You're always going to complain. You're just complaining.
Not to mention that the government will probably
Okay.
use this as an excuse to implement a system that will connect your real-life identity to your internet use, and then that can be used to destroy anonymity and free speech.
You're right.
So
So there's nothing we can do. So you're saying that there's nothing you can do. Okay.
this is not a great plan. This is why you don't allow boomers who don't know how Wi-Fi works to make laws about the internet.
So what would you do instead? What's your proposed solution?
Also, if you start attaching people's ID to their internet history, a lot of people will resist societal changes that protect children because they don't want people knowing what sites they've
So how would you do that then? What else would you do?
visited. So here's how we actually solve this problem.
There we go. Let's hear it.
We can do ID verification for websites in person. All you have to do is...
What? ID verification for websites in person?
sell it in the form of something like a gift card at places like liquor stores.
So you're going to buy a porn gift card in person? What?
You show your ID to the store clerk, buy the card or cards for $1 each, make an account for the website, put the code in, and now you are age verified.
Okay. I guess you could do that. Wouldn't they still have all your information though? Because they'd have to look at your ID. I don't know. I don't know if I'm bold enough to go goon in person. It seems a little excessive. Go buy your porn card in person. What else would you need it for other than porn? I think it's a little practical. Yeah, go buy your porn card in person. Just go buy that porn card in person. This way you could jack off the porn. No, thank you. All right, it's okay if my kid sees porn. I'd rather not have to go buy a porn card and let my kids see porn. I think they'll survive. Like I said, maybe just watch your kids more.
Also, the cards are single use, so some kid can't just steal one out of his dad's wallet and pass it around at school.
I gotta buy a porn card every time I jack off? I gotta go to the store and buy 15 porn cards to get through a week? No, just kidding. But I gotta buy a bunch of porn cards just to jerk off? What the fuck? Single use? What does that mean? Or are you saying what? What? What's stopping some fucking homeless guy going in there buying like 10 of them and giving them to some kids? I feel like that one's easy to bypass too. I don't know, man. This is bizarre.
Plus, it being single use would limit exposure in the case that a minor does get one, because you would only have access to one account on one website instead of every website, along with things like Google search. Yes, you should have to age verify to turn off safe search and view age-restricted content on search engines.
I feel like we don't need to go this far. You should just have to use a password to turn off the thing. Okay? Parents, watch your kids more.
Last, single-use cards make it more difficult for porn addicts
This
to
is
relapse
fucking
because if
stupid.
they revoke their ID verification or delete their accounts, they now have to drive to the store and enter codes for every website they used to use instead of being able to access adult websites instantly anytime they have an
Alright.
impulse. But the whole point of this is that it's very simple, it's anonymous, and if it were implemented,
It's not really that simple.
the numbers of kids getting access to adult websites would plummet.
Who cares? Honestly, I just don't care. That seems like such an unreasonable step, but okay.
Are there ways around this? Yes, but it's far better than what we have going right now, which is
Not really. I think you just have just watch your fucking kid. Put safe searches on your computer and be like the admin of your computer. Do the same thing with cell phones. Have technology. It's actually practical to just have technology that monitors these better.
is basically zero protection. It's time to start
Hey guys, I think this would really infringe on our freedoms. So go to the store, buy jack-off cards. Go buy your gooning card.
actually taking steps to keep children from getting access to content they shouldn't be seeing, instead of just saying it's wrong on social media
Okay.
and then forgetting about it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video.
Thank God we went on a weird tangent there. Really like that. That was my favorite part of the video when it got fucking unhinged. Okay, cool. Yeah, the design is very human.